We are on week 3 of our live mini course, and we're talking about this return to personal responsibility without shame and guilt. We're looking at, over the course of 12 weeks, this living framework that I have. So, my philosophy is neurohumanity, and neurohumanity basically says that it's all about the nervous system. It's all about being present and letting life present. And what we find is when nervous system is activated, our mind is immediately going into our past experiences. Our brain, in an effort for survival, is hoarding every stressed experience we have ever had. And then it's using them as fast as possible, reacting within milliseconds whenever another stress is on. And so that neurohumanity philosophy says this is our tendency for the nervous system. It's going to have a reaction. It's helped us to survive. It's helped us to get this far. So we don't shame and blame it. We see what it's doing, and if it's not working for us, we take that moment to pause and to be present and to find a response so that we have integrity under activation. The pendulum is going to keep moving. It's life. But what we're trying to do is not stop the pendulum. It will always move. What we're trying to do is find our return on this metronome. So movement will always happen, but we do it based on our values and the trust that we have. And so this week, returning to personal responsibility without shame, it's really starting to look in these metronome ideas. And as always, on Wednesday, Emma is doing her final. I guess this is the last of the month. So she's doing her final. She's actually going to talk about return on Wednesday. So you'll see that show up probably closer to noon on my end. But she'll be doing it at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's take a moment. Take a deep breath in. Relax those shoulders. Let it out. Get those toes squishing on the floor. Feel your back up against the wall. And so what we want to look at is this idea of tending our yard. And the part where we have to ask, what is mine to actually tend? What part of the yard is actually mine to tend? Not what I need to fix everyone else's. We are in part 4. So I'm getting notes from part 3. We are on part 4. So we're actually now going to be a yard of many seasons. So we let go of shame and guilt last week. We're still on the neurohumanity philosophy. It is my philosophy. The living framework is understanding how that philosophy comes out. So we have layers and a garden metaphor that helps us to understand how to be present and let life present. And we're really starting to look at what tending the garden is and understanding that just because you're in the garden, there's no hierarchy. So just because you're in the garden doesn't mean that there's no nirvana on earth, there's no Eden, right? There's no utopia. There's still going to be stressors. There's going to be infestations. There's going to be seasons. There's going to be things in our yard that we are going to be tending. And amongst that is going to be seasons: winter, summer, spring, and fall. And so as we started looking at the landscape and explore what may be happening beneath the surface, now what we want to do is we want to zoom out and understand that none of us live in a perfectly isolated garden. We are all in a place where we live, we work, we grow, we heal alongside other people. And those people may not be the same season that we are in. And we don't want to get stuck in that comparison trap. While you're resting, someone else may be pushing, or maybe you're ready for an honest conversation and someone else is still protecting themselves and shying away and avoiding. And maybe you finally are growing into your voice with someone else who is uncomfortable with the space you're beginning to take up. It does not automatically mean either person is wrong. It doesn't mean that you're not a match. It doesn't mean that we need to cancel that person. It may simply mean that you are standing in a different season. And we can share a yard and we can share a boundary while being in different seasons. And so being aware and tending that doesn't mean that it's necessarily disconnection. What it means is one of the most difficult parts of relationship is recognizing that growth does not always happen in the same aspect, at the same speed, the same way, or the same time. And we are in our own garden and they are in their own garden. And remember that comparison trap gets us through fear of success, fear of failure, self-sabotage, and scarcity mindset. It's everything holding us from that precipice of lasting change. As we go through that precipice, all of our past is stacking up, saying, I don't know, like you don't know what's in there. We have no idea what's behind that door. And we imagine it's just a hallway filled with more doors. But I'm telling you, trust me, it's a meadow. You go through that, you tend your own garden, you go through that, it's a meadow. And you can go to the lake, you can go to the forest, you can go to the mountain, you can hang out in the meadow. But that's what we're getting through. We're trying to get past our past to go through the precipice into a meadow. And it doesn't matter what season we're in when that meadow happens, or what season the meadow is in when that happens. And it doesn't matter where other people's seasons are, because we're tending our garden and we're focusing on us. It's still important for the people around us to feel like we understand, and that we understand that we understand. That we value what we value, that we move what we move, and that we rest when we rest. It's important to communicate when we are ready to communicate and not hold off because we're not really sure if someone else is capable. When we are opening up a space for interaction and tending our own garden, we are fully showing up in that space. And other people may show up and other people may not be capable. It doesn't change what your value and your capacity and predictor of your outcomes are, even if somebody doesn't show up in that room. And you may be like, Jen, if literally I'm trying to sell to somebody and nobody is there, then I don't make my profit, right? I don't get to sell whatever it is I am. And I'm telling you, you've set up a room, which means now you have a brick and mortar, right? So maybe that one person you thought you primed and that you thought you had a relationship with was going to be the person. But I'm telling you, when you have faith, when you have trust, you have no idea who's going to walk in that door, because you set up a space that is yours and is truly reflective of you and what you're curating to be in your life. So we have to be less narrow, because that's nervous system activation. And what we're doing is we're zooming out and realizing that the world is chaotic. And with all the destruction and despair, that chaos, there's beauty. There's miraculously beautiful things that happen. And so, as we know that interaction is unpredictable, it is radical acceptance at its finest, because it's two lives, two pieces of chaos coming together, and we don't necessarily know what's going to happen. And our nervous system has a lot of preconceived notions of what may or may not happen. It really wants to show up. And it's okay that two people can experience the same moment very differently. That one person may be engaged and the other feel overwhelmed, or one leaning in on connection and the other may need some space. One may experience a season of expansion and the other one may be trying to conserve energy just to get through the day. The challenge is learning not to interpret every difference as rejection, abandonment, laziness, selfishness, or lack of care. That's attachment. Remember, in the negative dynamic, reactionary emotions, cognitive distortion, attachment is the third thing that comes up that we immediately start to put a filter on how we expect somebody else to show up in that space. Sometimes another person's season is not a statement about your worth, and it's not your season to attack theirs. It's being present and letting life present and realizing that everybody has a different experience. Don't make this season, don't make their season about you. Do not make their season about you. When our nervous system senses distance or tension or even some type of distance or differences, it may try to create a quick explanation, right? It wants a cognitive distortion for its reactionary emotion, and then it's going to pull in attachment, avoidant, or this is a burden. I don't want to be a burden to them, or I'm afraid they're going to leave and abandon me. Like they don't care. They're pulling away. They're disappointed in me. They should be further along. If I do not help, everything will fall apart. If I don't step in, no one else will. They must be upset. I must be not doing something right. These interpretations can pull out of our own yard and into someone else's. We're no longer tending our yard. We're too worried about what's happening in theirs. We begin monitoring their mood, managing their reactions, and predicting their needs. We adjust our truth, we reduce our boundaries, and are pushing them towards growth. They may not be ready to choose. We're starting to manipulate their yard, and that's only going to cause a self-fulfilling prophecy. Our fear, so we overput our hand in their pot, and then our fear usually comes true because we're so narrowly focused on that fear of what we don't want to do and how control we want to put in, that we end up missing it. We end up missing it because sometimes helping is actually an attempt to reduce our own discomfort. And that's why tending can quietly become controlling. And so, how do you support somebody without over tending? There's a difference between supporting someone and tending their entire yard for them. Support says, I am here. I care about what you're experiencing. I can listen. I can offer help. I can respect your process. But overtending says, I need to fix this for you. I need to make you see what I see. I need you to feel my presence. I need to prevent you from being disappointed. I need to abandon my own needs to help you remain comfortable. Not because anybody asked you to do that. That's your nervous system making that choice all for themselves. It can look like love on the surface, and it could look like, how could I not do this? This isn't pushing boundaries. This is what it is to be a mother and loving. Clearly, you don't get it. And I'm telling you, this is poor boundaries, and you're not letting people live their life. Mel Robbins has an important podcast that my clients like to bring up, and I'm like, yeah, it's called mindfulness, but she has a great way of putting it. Let them, the whole let them theory. They are not going to fail, but they will fail because you can't be in their garden all the time tending. And when you step out of your garden to go tend somebody else's, that is 1.5 gardens that are not producing for the community. You're not helping anybody but yourself. And even then, you're not helping yourself because you're actually destroying yourself. You're destroying that relationship, and you are creating an invalidating emotional environment that made you do this. And now you're creating it for them, but they're going to feel helpless and hopeless, like they can't do anything. And so you've just set them up to get into a codependent relationship. And then you're going to be on their case constantly of why can't they find a good partner? Do you see how the same worry keeps coming up and you just keep reinforcing why you need to be overly involved in someone's life? Because you can love without becoming responsible for your entire season. You can support you without abandoning your own yard. And you can allow you to struggle without deciding that you have failed. And so, as we are finding a metronome in our connections with others, we want to see that just because somebody is activated in a hyper ways, they are anxious, they're withdrawn, they're disappointed, they're defensive, they're overwhelmed, or their nervous system just isn't matching your rhythm. They become louder, so we become louder. They withdraw, so we chase. They're disappointed, so we collapse. They're anxious, so we take over. They are uncertain, so we rush to provide answers. One will match the other. When one person is hyper aroused, the other will go hypo. When one person is hypo, the other one will go hyper. One will match the other. It's a pendulum. And the brain is constantly trying to find this perceived neutrality, even in relationships, not even just with ourselves and not just within the nervous system, but the systems. There's like thousands of pendulums in our body. There are thousands of pendulums in our body. And the whole system is not only trying to regulate a perceived neutrality within itself, but amongst all the systems. And then the systems that come together between two people. It's all about perceived neutrality. It's finding these gives and takes. That's why yin and yang matches so well. Why there's one spender and one saver. Why there's a worrier and a passive avoidant person. Because it all is connected. It doesn't mean that you're cold or detached or unaffected. It just means you're trying to find a perceived neutrality and offering a steady pace. So I can let this conversation pause without deciding the relationship is in danger. Presence allows two nervous systems to exist in the same space without one person having to disappear. And that's why boundaries are so important. They're our garden markers. They tell us where we are and what to expect in that place. They're not walls, and they're not there to punish people, right? It's not like an electric fence, right? It's not a shotgun. These are not boundaries. These are consequences, right? They help relationships stay clear. They help us to understand that if you turn right, you go to the veggie garden. If you turn left, you're going to go to the pollinator garden. Both are great gardens. Both you'll probably see bees and butterflies and birds. It doesn't matter where you go. It's being intentional and saying, what do I want? And then that's where I'm going to go towards. If I want zinnias, if I want sunflowers, if I want poppies, I'm going to go one way. If I want cucumbers and tomatoes and beans, I'm going to go another way. Not because one is a better or worse place, but because that's where my values are and where I want to be intentional. And it may sound like I am willing to talk about this and I'm not willing to be yelled at. I care about what you're saying and I cannot make the decision for you. I understand that you're disappointed and my answer remains a no. Boundaries do not guarantee that person will be happy because our success is not on somebody else's emotional space and their nervous system activation. It helps us to be honest and hold true to our values and to consistently show our love through our consistent messaging of honoring our values and validating without agreeing on other people's experiences. They can have that. But when we are all over the place because we just want to make people happy, so sometimes we say yes, but sometimes we say no, it's dysregulating for the other person's nervous system. So if you want a regulated nervous system, if that's your intention, be clear and consistent with the boundaries that you set. That's the whole point of this. Stop self-abandoning because it's making it confusing for everybody, and then resentment builds, and then there are invoices to be paid at the end of the interaction. Let go of all of that. Make room for many seasons. These dualities of truth. A healthy yard contains more than one type of growth. We don't just do annuals. because now we have to wait until the seeds are blooming in our season in order to do that. It's a lot of pieces. So we have some annuals, we have some perennials, we have some bulbs and tubers, we have trees, like we have different things in our garden, because then something is happening all the time and there's something to be tended all the time. Not in a performance way, but in a way of presence and appreciating and enjoying that experience. There may be flowers blooming in one area, a section that needs pruning. There's so many things. And they may be ready in one area and resistant in another. And that is okay too. It's rarely uniform. Growth is rarely uniform. And when we demand that every part of a person bloom at once, we create performance instead of development. We create this language of discipline that they should and could be more. That perceived expectation starts to show up. So we can acknowledge limitations without defining someone by them. We can allow relationships to have seasons too. Some seasons are close and connected, others require repair or space. Some reveal that the relationship has to change. And acceptance doesn't mean every relationship will remain the same or that we have to abandon it. It means that we stop arguing with the reality of what is currently present. And discernment is understanding what is mine and what is theirs. How do I get back to my garden and understand that it is for them to tend their garden? And whatever is encroaching, I always use bamboo, but they're planting bamboo right on the border, Jen. Come on. I know you got to know what I'm talking about. I am an anxious high achiever. I know what you're talking about. I've been there. I've fought the battle of, what am I supposed to do? That bamboo is going to come into my yard. I worked so hard on this yard, and that bamboo is going to take over my yard. I've been there. I know it. I also know it didn't help the relationship. It didn't help me. It didn't help the person to be like, what are you doing? Do you not know how invasive bamboo is? What is your intention there? Can you put it in a pot first? It doesn't help because I'm trying to control and tend somebody's yard. But what I can do is have conversations. What I can do is tend my garden and allow an opportunity for people to see how I'm tending. That I did want a privacy screen and I did understand the bamboo thing, but I didn't want to like screw anyone over. So I put my bamboo in a pot and I have a beautiful area of shade and protection and quiet, so that when I want to be kind of peacefully off to the side, I didn't have bamboo take over my yard. They can see that, right? They can see the cute little statues and water features and the koi pond. Like they can see all of it and they can choose to do that or not, but I can't dictate what they do in their garden. Because my words, my choices, my boundaries, my tone, my repair, my willingness to listen, those are all mine. And what is theirs is their feelings, their interpretation, their pace, their decisions, their willingness to communicate, and their responsibility to repair their half. Their choices to grow or remain where they are. This does not mean that we stop caring. It means that we stop confusing care with control, that we need to be in their yard in order to give them love. We can invite connection. We cannot force participation. We can model honesty and wise decision making. We cannot make someone receive it. So this week, I want you to name the seasons. I want you to choose one relationship or shared environment that you're in. Remember, a relationship is an interaction between two people. It's a Venn diagram, your negative dynamic, their negative dynamic, and where it overlaps is, oops, there's our little hearts. It's not just about love and romance. It's any interactions. It's coworkers, it's a boss and employee, it's leadership and the people that they're trying to affect change on. All of it is interactions between two people. So what is that interaction? Is it a family member, a colleague, a team, a partner, a friend? And just ask yourself, what season am I in? Am I planting? Am I resting? Am I pruning, repairing, or growing? Then ask, what season may that person be in? You don't have to diagnose them. Just simply practice a bit of curiosity. Maybe they're overwhelmed, or they're rebuilding, or they're protecting, or they're not ready. Maybe they're growing in a way that doesn't look like your growth. Maybe their idea of growth and success has nowhere near on your radar what yours is. And finally, I want you to ask, what does this shared yard need from me? Where's that boundary line? And what do I want to offer in my yard at that boundary line that is going to share and model a unity, an olive branch towards that other yard? But we stay in our yard. Is it a boundary? Is it more space? Is it a conversation? Is it patience? Is it an actual repair? Or is it just permission to stop carrying what is not yours? Each day, I want you to pause and act, can I remain present without taking over someone else's season? A shared yard, sharing that line connected to somebody else, does not require identical growth. It requires clarity, respect, responsibility, and presence. The goal is not to make everyone bloom on the same schedule. The goal is to learn how to remain rooted while growth unfolds around us. It's allowing people to tend their yard, even if it's coming close and there may be something there that's encroaching in our yard, or even that it's just massively destructive because they think that their leaves on their yard is creating a natural compost and you want your yard completely clear. And so, even though you have to go out there and blow every day so that leaves are not on your yard, it's not because you have to be the one. Don't get stuck in these, why do I have to be the one? Why do I always have to? That's cognitive distortion, all or nothing thinking. Instead, zoom out, find a focal point, see where there is growth in different ways, and focus on you and your values and what your growth is. And if you have questions or anything, put it in the comments, because we can share a yard and a boundary line without sharing the same season. We can be present without feeling like we need to perform. I'm Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions. Thank you so much for showing up today. It's a really important lesson. We're learning that living framework. Emma is going to have our final metronome series on the return and learning about this return, realizing that you are somebody who doesn't want those leaves, and yet the leaves are inevitably coming and falling on your yard. How do you return and not create a bunch of invoices for your neighbor? I'll see you next week. We're going to continue to learn how to tend the garden. We've got a lot of great things that we're doing as it comes to the living framework and purpose-driven contribution and how our work can become cultivation. I will see you next week. Have a good one.